Hello guys, so today I'm going to finally discuss planet Gigantis, the planet that I once lived on. This I always thought when I was a kid. It's funny when I was a kid. It was kind of odd that I was obsessed with dinosaurs. Kind of odd that I was extremely smart at reading and everything. I just always kind of thought that my existence alone was kind of odd. You know, I definitely believe I lived before. Right now, I've been questioning that for a while. What if I lived before? Now, I definitely now believe I lived before, and if I, of course, die before biological immortality, I'll definitely come back on this planet and live on it again. Okay, that's well, and yeah, basically, but yeah, Planet Gigantus was a planet likely in another universe, because the time I died in Planet Gigantus was 400 years past this future. Okay, 400 years past here. Okay, there. You know. So what was the planet like? The planet was the size of Neptune. It had a ring system. It was a solar system Planet Gigantus was in a solar system very similar. No, about like ours. There were like a few rocky planets, a few gas giants, of course. You know, I don't really remember like much about like the language and stuff, because it's just while I need to remember the language and stuff, because you have to, because it's gonna be a foreign language anyways. You're not gonna be able to speak it. But I remember, I even drew on my tablet the entire troposphere of the planet. Because I remember the entire troposphere of the planet. There is one gigantic Pangea continent. Okay, one gigantic Pangea continent. And this continent is larger than all of its super hot rods. Okay, it is a extremely large continent. There's massive deserts in the middle of the continent. You know, there are multiple races of creatures on the planet, not just the Gigantians, which I'll discuss in great detail. There are the Antions, who are an ant-like race. They basically lived for like 10 to 15 years every year. They were the Antions were mostly were very much like ants, but intelligent. They were far more intelligent. They were very big, around 3 to 4 feet tall. They were pretty big. We also had the cat-like race. Life on Planet Gigantus evolved very similar to Earth's life. It evolved very similar to Earth's life. You have mammals, you have birds, you have dinosaurs still, you have lizards, you have fish. It evolved very similar to our planet as well. Yeah, you have a lot of there's lots of different types of organisms on that planet, but the life forms are very similar. Evolved very similar. But on Planet Gigantus, there's more than just one intelligent form of life. More than one intelligent form of life. There are multiple intelligent forms of life on this planet. Of course, there was a race of seal-like creatures that live on the southern south, which is like Antarctica. Only they live there. They have a king that lasts for generations. Since you have the I haven't even discussed the other races yet, but you have the Celions are, of course, seals. Of course, seal. They were mostly hunter-gatherers until 2300 or 2200 in our year time. There you have a race of dog-like creatures. The dog-like creatures are very spiritual creatures. They were very smart. They have proven lots of things. They were not very skeptical creatures. They were actually far more advanced than the Gigantians for a while. They were not about war. They were more peaceful. They were more about discovery and spirituality. They were more about discovering what is the purpose of this universe. Like kind of like we're doing now. We're in the same area that the dog-like races. They massively extended their lives so they can live forever. Gigantians were a far bit behind them, but Dogions, they dog race, basically. Most of the races ended with Ion for some reason. That's what the Gigantians kept calling them. You know, they were very, very same thing with the cat-like race. The cat-like race was not very intelligent. They were more focused on inner survival. Okay, more religious, like the Antions, ant race. They were more very, 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 very religious. The Dogions were they didn't believe in religion. They only believed in spiritual. Whoa, they always lived in spirituality and stuff like that. There. Right now we're in the same place as the Dogions. We're questioning all these things like, oh, is there life after death? Or why do we exist? Is reality actually real? The dog like race was already questioning that 100 years before Gigantians started questioning that as well. And then of course we have the Gigantians. They are a very, 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 very massive presence on the planet. They basically saved the planet. They're kind of like the human race. The Gigantians were the ones that were shaping the planet to where it was before I didn't live on that planet anymore. Right, so this planet was so horrible. It was such a bad place to live on. The Gigantians were obsessed with war. They were obsessed with war. They basically became a machine civilization, but once they achieved immortality, for Gigantians it was not a pleasurable existence. Humans it probably will be, but Gigantians it was not. Why? Because the Gigantians were obsessed with war. They were obsessed with conquering this galaxy. Even after Miracraptor died. It took a couple of godlike beings to beat him. Because Miracraptor wanted to become God itself. They just had to stop Miracraptor from doing that. But the Gigantians, there were 3 groups of Gigantians. There are the standard Gigantians, which are the ones who were questioning reality and that stuff. We're in the same area as the Gigantians. We're in the same area as the Gigantians were 20 years before they gained immortality and all that stuff. And they realized that the natural laws of the universe and all that stuff, all the natural laws of the universe, they were developing artificial intelligence. And the Gigantian plan was essentially to more, unlike, some were skeptical about artificial intelligence like we are now. Some were skeptical about superintelligence. They were worried that superintelligence would destroy the planet for a nuclear war. Even though the Gigantians were already obsessed with nuclear war and bombing every single planet city of other countries and even other civilizations when they started attacking other civilizations. They were already obsessed with they were a very, very, very aggressive race. Okay, especially the Tyrantians. The Tyrantians, their entire lives evolved around war. Their entire lives evolved around war, destruction, and basically, destroying other races, and taking the planets for their own. Gigantians have already achieved, many Gigantians, have already were achieving higher levels of consciousness. They realize that the goal of existence is to become gods and create their own universes or simulations, as we call it. There's infinite amount of universes or simulations. There's an infinite amount of universes, and when someone or something dies in any of these simulations, they always go back to the spawn room or the spirit world. That's the spawn room. You wait. You have spawn queues of how long you can live on how long you can be there. Basically, it's kind of like a queue room. There. You remember that. There. But I'll go over that in some other video. The spawn room. When you die, you just respawn. And the world is just like a video game. Okay, it's just like a video game, essentially. But the Gigantians already knew that kind of stuff. Okay, the Gigantians never feared death after they found out that's the truth. But the Gigantians still wanted to live forever because they found out that is the goal of every creature. The goal of every creature and every intelligent life. There's a reason why many creatures reincarnate into the same species, same creature. It is because they view that these creatures are important. They view that this race, this group of races, are important, and they can achieve them to a collective consciousness, okay, of making our own realities, making our own universes, and overcoming that simulation, that or that universe, okay, to the point the Gigantians were a machine civilization by when Gigantians started reaching the ages of like 700 to 800. They practically were machines. There were very, very, very little biological parts themselves. Most Gigantians born after, 2015 to 2020, 2030 were all cyborgs. It was the first completely cybernetic generation. Most Gigantians, were cybernetic. They weren't really and again they still had consciousness and souls because they were still Gigantians. They were still biological at birth, so they still had souls. They still had energy, life energy. Okay, AI will never have a soul. AI is artificial. Okay, artificial. We can't give an AI a soul because it's not a biological being. So even if we become a machine civilization, okay, in the future, which a lot of people will probably be able to live to see it currently living today, if life extension does succeed, which I believe it will. Okay, if you look at Gigantian, I mentioned the Gigantians here, but they were very, 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 very skeptical of life extension. It says they were questioning: should we cheat death? Should we cheat the natural laws of the universe? And they said, okay, let's just do it anyways. And guess what they did? And hopefully humanity does not do this. Okay, hopefully humanity does not do this. Because the Gigantians, they said, you know what? If you accept the virtualization, you will basically be drafted into eternal wars and eternal conflict. That's what the Gigantians really cared about. That's all they cared about. I actually hope they don't exist. Okay, they don't exist. Because if they exist, that's gonna be a very, very, very hard problem for humanity. Okay, it's gonna be very, 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 very difficult because they invaded our solar system around 2458. That's what the time when they invaded our solar system, so they can take our planet for their own. Okay, they wanted to take. They didn't care about other races. They viewed other races as inferior. The Gigantians viewed humanity as inferior. That's what they did. They viewed us as inferior race. And many other races. They were going against many humanoid-like races. There was many humanoid-like races. Many races that resemble humans. And Gigantians and other races and Gigantians completely committed genocides. So they can take the plants for the consumption. They refuse the work of any other race. It kind of reminds me of the Gigantians kind of remind me of Frieza's Empire. Gigantians, they can live forever, essentially, if they accept the virtualization, which is basically the merging of AI and merging of consciousness with AI, which will be possible by the end of this century. Is it century? Essentially, at the end of the 21st century, a lot of humans would have, a lot of humans that are alive today will have accepted the virtualization. Which is the key to immortality. The Gigantians were completely, man. There were very, very, very little biological Gigantians left at all. Most Gigantians were mostly machines. They can't be hacked either. They cannot be hacked. They had armor that was 15 times stronger than steel. Okay, a normal gun today will not be able to pierce Gigantian armor at all. Not even a rocket would save them off. You had to use weapons made of lasers to even pierce the armor. The cybernetic armor cannot be hacked. their nanotech, they can regenerate via nanotechnology, and even if their entire body is destroyed, the mind and consciousness is always backed up by the crowd. Effectively, they basically made an endless source of soldiers for the country, because Gigantians would sign up for the Gigantian military and accept the virtualization so they can fight in wars forever. Because Gigantians were obsessed with wars. Not every Gigantian, but a vast majority of them were obsessed with war and conquering other planets. Because they viewed themselves as superior. Yeah, they viewed themselves as the greatest as well. Kind of like if Nazi Germany never got destroyed. That's what the Gigantians viewed themselves as. They viewed themselves as the superior race. Okay, they don't they want Gigantians want to control the galaxy. They want to become a Type 3 civilization. Instead of negotiating with other civilizations, they just want to conquer. And we were actually able to fight off against the Gigantians. Are not a weak species. If we also had similar technology to Gigantians. Yep. A lot of humanity already had the modes of technology as well during that time. We instead of preparing for war against other countries, we were preparing for the inevitability that aliens would invade the solar system. We were developing. We had a massive space fleet. Okay, we had all this technology that we could only dream of today. Okay, many humans had android bodies, that were very, very, very powerful, biological and mechanical android bodies, kind of like in Dragon Ball Z. There were still biological humans as well. Okay, and the humans of that world also completely accepted spirituality as the only religion, there were two religions basically by that time. Okay, there was the spiritual religion and there was the digital religion. The one that was spiritual, they accepted, spiritual one humans accepted that they could die one day. But the digital immortalities, the perpetual life religion, which massively increased ever since humanity gained immortality in that era. Okay, and there's also someone similar that also told me, yeah, there was that they had a very, 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 very similar one. Well, it was a bird-like race, but instead of wanting to conquer this planet or the planets, they wanted to trade out their technology with us. Basically, they wanted to sell and prosper. So I believe that Gigantis is the same race. Gigantis are the same race, but in a different timeline, a different universe, a different reality. Okay. A lot about the universe is poorly known and poorly understood. Okay. A lot about a lot about the meaning of the universe is poorly understood. It will take 20 to 30 years for humanity to truly understand the meaning and the truths about the universe. The truths about the universe, and stop questioning every single little thing. And that's when a race truly reaches true, as they call it, enlightenment. But instead of embrace, oh yeah, we all become one or God. No. I mean, true enlightenment. We understand how the universe works. We understand that our race has the potential of becoming a godlike civilization. Like a YouTube channel said, I think the YouTube channel's name is Borg. He basically said exactly that we have the potential to become I think he is completely right. The whole point of reincarnation is to potentially become a godlike civilization. Okay, that's the whole goal of this world. Okay, the Gigantes already knew that, but they went about it the wrong way. Many Gigantes were just accepting, I'd rather die than be put in perpetual war for no reason. Okay, including myself. There was no point in continuing perpetual war. Okay. The Gigantian governments were very, very, very strict. Anyone who cried out against war were essentially, even after Miracrafter, were basically just sent off to other planets. You know, the prison planets, or even executed. Okay? Humans are far more better than Gigantians. Okay? People say, oh yeah, humanity is such a horrible and evil race. They're far more better than Gigantians. Gigantians, they were sending people out to other planets because they had a different opinion. Okay? They were sending people who Gigantians who had a different political opinion than humans. And just sent them out to die. Okay? Some conservatives say, oh, that's already happening. That's already happening because of, blah, 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 blah. Okay? But Gigantians went about censorship. They basically were like the Chinese government. That's why I always say communism is awful, because the Gigantians were very communist. They were very much a communist militarist. They were like North Korea, basically. Okay? All they cared about was basically just ruling over others. And that's all they cared about. They were like North Korea. Okay? Planet Gigantis is a planet that I don't think I'm ever gonna come back to. Okay? I just hope and pray that Planet Gigantis does not exist. We already discovered like super Earths and stuff, but hopefully we don't discover a planet of Planet Gigantis. Avian like race that wants to conquer the entire universe in the name of basically becoming there. They basically went around the logic and laws of the universe the wrong way. They united as a collective consciousness to conquer and destroy. Okay? They were essentially an evil civilization. When people talk about evil when someone says like the worst thing about the Fermi paradox is, oh yeah, there's a machine civilization coming around destroying life every 20 years. That's exactly what the Gigantians were. They were becoming that civilization. They wanted to eliminate any other signs of intelligent life because, first of all, number one, that would be competition to them. Okay? Humanity was actually the only race to actually stand up to them. Because most of the other races were very, very primitive compared to us. And there was one other race that stood up to them. It was another, race. It was a more traditional alien race. But they were the only other civilization besides mankind to stand up to the Gigantian Empire. To stand up and, this is just wrong. Humanity, like, we gotta stand up to this race that is just completely genociding the galaxy because they want to be superior and they want to rule the universe and be the only ones left. And humanity and that other race teamed up together, okay, to fight off against the Gigantians. We basically made our first galactic allies around the time the Gigantis invaded Earth. Okay, the time they invaded Earth, again, I watched it all on the news. The humanity, this, weird ape-like race. I bet that's probably where I got the idea of living with humanity as. Because how would I live as a Gigantian? How do I live as a human? A race that has far more compassion for life, far more compassion for living, okay? Yes, there's still wars in humanity, but we won from World War II, okay? There was no World War III on planet Earth on Gigantic. On planet Earth, okay? Earth. There was no World War III, despite North Korea and stuff, okay? But humanity basically united with various other alien races to stop Planet Gigantis' expansion. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're still doing that. Because Planet Gigantis owns thousands of solar systems. Okay, it's like Stellaris. But they own thousands and thousands of galaxies. Okay, Gigantians, they evolved at the same time, very much the same time as we did. Okay, but it took them like 200 to 300 years before they got to humanity. Okay, it took them until 2489, I think, when they attacked Pluto. Okay, with 2489. Right, and of course they established contact with them around early 2400s, and we knew that the Gigantians were not a friendly race. They were a very, 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 very aggressive race. It was the one message that we did not want to see. you will be exterminated. You will be destroyed and submitted. The sending message was essentially was, you will submit to our rule around the galaxy. It was a message from Mimicraptor, as well. It was a message from Mimicraptor and Tyrantus, two tyrannical rulers that were even worse than Hitler. Tyrantus and Mimicraptor, Hitler was a saint compared to Tyrantus and Mimicraptor. Mimicraptor was the one who came up with the idea to genocide other races. He was the one that said, you know what, let's just destroy. Man, let's just destroy every other race. That the ones that are at least not useful to plant gigantis. You know, or can't fight back. And yeah, they went around, and it's just, it was just a horrible thing they were doing. They were horrible things, okay? There's a reason why I didn't choose, because Gigantians were not good people, okay? You know, they were very, very smart, but they were not good at all, okay? Why would anyone within a race that wants perpetual war? So yeah, I hope the Gigantis does not exist. The culture was, again, very, very, very based around war. But other than that, they really had bad food. Yep, they had bad food compared to our planet. Okay, their food, it was tainted with, like, chemicals and stuff. And it was, like, this not the food was just made just to fear war. Okay? Gigantians also made like virtual games of virtual reality and all that stuff. And that stuff. But many Gigantians were sick of Vampire Gigantus, even though they could live forever. Because they were obsessed with war. They couldn't enjoy, it was like you couldn't enjoy the pleasures of life on Planet Gigantus. You couldn't enjoy the good things about life. All the Planet Gigantus was basically caused a massive extinction on their own planet. Okay? They basically eliminated lots of life forms on the planet and hunted them to extinction. And they didn't even think about bringing them back to life. They said, you know what? We're running out of food, so we gotta conquer other planets. It's, humans, we're more about saving animals. We're more, there's organizations that are dedicated to making animals not go extinct. Okay? Gigantians do not care. They didn't also didn't care about global warming. Okay. Yes, after Mimicraptor, the Gigantians stopped with the massive genocides, which was the only good thing they started doing. But they didn't stop with the wars and the conquest. They didn't want peaceful interactions at all. It was not. They don't want, a peaceful life. And yeah, there were many heroes again. There was actually a rebellion on Planet Gigantus too. But it's really to rid the war of Mimicraptor. That was the only thing that was on their mind. To rid the war of Mimicraptor and to overthrow him. The leader was Gigantoraptor. He was a very, 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 very young Gigantian. And the whole rebellion started by his his great grandfather, Gigantus. Okay, Gigantus. It was started by his great grandfather. His great, he was assassinated by the American government for starting the rebellion. The American Red government. Again, since he accepted the virtualization, he didn't die. And then, of course, he was forced into a perpetual war of most Gigantians under Mimicraptor's rule. Okay? So, yeah. Right now we're in the same area. The Gigantians were in the same area as we are now. Okay? They were questioning reality. They were saying, is there truly life after death? Is there truly, all this stuff? They were questioning, like, reality. Why do we live in this universe? Why were we here? Okay, they were doing the same exact thing. And there were Gigantians that atheism was growing against it, as well. There were other religions popping up, and there was even a religion popping around Mimicraptor. A new religion, which was to worship him as an eternal god. Of course, that religion quickly diminished after he died, but yeah. But yeah, the Gigantians, again, they go about the technology. The technology, okay, they had very very tough armor. They had access to armor that was 15 times stronger than steel. Okay, you know, graphene. That's what their armor was. It was like one of the strongest materials, or like vibranium. The only way to destroy it was significant laser weapons, as well. Okay, they also had gigantic mechs that were the size of buildings. Things that could be operated by over hundreds. They also had jetpack mechs. They already had massive armor, robotic cyborg equipment. They also had mechs that they flied around in, with jetpacks and everything. The Gigantians could terrifically talk to each other. They could enter and exit the digital world as well. And if a Gigantian died, one of the bodies died, they could easily create a new body using digital, by using digital, kind of like kind of like the Borderlands, to the new U system. Okay, Gigantians never got older after they figured out how to get rid of aging. That was the first step to the immortality too. They got rid of aging. You couldn't get old in Gigantians. Gigantians also found out ways to resurrect the dead, and that's how they found out. Yeah, you know what? The people who are talking about these afterlife were actually correct, and they were able to resurrect Gigantians from the dead using, cells and stuff. And the Gigantians, most Gigantians even have need to reproduce. Only like 700,000 Gigantians were born a year on Planet Gigantis. That lived on Planet Gigantis, but most of them were really sent out to other planets that they already conquered. Mega Gigantians also believed that the universe was a simulation, and they even got more and more proof of that once they realized that we are always illusion and the universe is an entire simulation. And when you die, you go outside of this, the universe, the simulation, and you get to choose which simulation you get to go in and stuff, which planet, how you want to look, and exactly like that. That's what happens when you die and you go outside of the simulation. But the whole point of the simulation, okay, which there was infinite amount of simulations and universes, is for a race to become a godlike race and create their own simulations. So you can become gods. You can become their own simulation. So you can basically escape the matrix, essentially. When they talk about, you had to wait and it's a reincarnation type, nope, it's you going into your next simulated life. Okay, your next life of the simulation of the universe of Yodel. Okay, your next video game character. Okay, life is basically like a movie, a video game, which again many people who had near-death experiences, and Gigantians as well, and many other creatures around multiple universes, multiple planets. Okay, when they realize that that's what they do. Ourselves love, the creatures that won the simulations love our stories, and they basically hope that one day we'll develop the intelligence, the greatness enough that we don't need to use the basis of the simulation anymore. They don't need to use the rules of the simulation. Okay, and once we are able to create our own simulations, our own universes, that's when the universe, that's when the heat of the universe begins, because you don't really need to live in the simulation anymore. So, and the Gigantians, they figured out, that was the guy, those guys, the Gigantians, like, that's true. Okay, that and there's no origin universe, because every intelligent life can create artificial universes or simulated universes. And it dawned on me, it is true. If you look at, I'll discuss that in another video. Is this universe really a simulation? But, many Gigantians questioned reality. They were questioning, like, why do we exist? What is our purpose? Why are we on this planet? Why do we need to die? Why do we need to grow old? Why do we need to, do all this stuff? Why? We're in that same area. We're questioning everything. That's when the race is about to gain, immortality. Okay, when we start finding the solutions to the universe, including stuff like getting older, okay, including stuff like, dying, okay, becoming an immortal race. So that's what the Gigantians did. Not every Gigantian. Death among Gigantians were only among suicides. 100 years after immortality was gained. The only deaths was among suicides. Gigantians who were sick of their simulation. Again, suicide is a horrible, horrible, horrible option. It is never the answer, okay? Because you'll just come back to the simulation anyways. You'll come back to the simulation anyways. So, it's very suicide's pointless. You will come back to the simulated universes anyways. You never leave the simulated universes until you become. Gigantians wouldn't do that, and they were progressing. Okay, they were. I'll go over the Gigantians and the super. I'll go over AI next to Gigantians. Okay, but the Gigantians, AI progressed rapidly. They were created video games and stuff, movies, film, entertainment. Okay, planes, boats, spaceships. They're already colonizing the solar system. But the most important discovery Gigantes made were AI. That was the most important discovery. Because they realized, hey, we can create our new intelligence. We can create our new intelligence. Okay? We can create our own intelligence. We're doing the exactly same thing the Gigantians are doing. We're creating our own artificial robots. And in 100 years, most of us will probably have extremely modified robotic bodies, or even virtualized bodies, where we can create new physical bodies out of our wills. That's the whole point of existence, is for a race with common goals. It's for a race to unite with common goals, common ideals, common ideologies. Okay, the Gigantians, their common ideology was a communistic ideology, a communist authoritarian ideology. Our ideology is a more democratic ideology. Even places like China and North Korea are soon going to adopt a more democratic ideology. And more countries are adopting more democratic ideologies. That's what made humanity in the Gigantian universe. They were more democratic. They weren't obsessed with extremist ideologies like the Gigantians were. The Gigantians were more about communism, authoritarianism, militarism, and other forms of things. And when the AI came around, when Gigantians developed super intelligent AI, okay, the Gigantians worked with super intelligent AI to reveal all the stuff that they questioned about the universe. Why are we here? What's our purpose? Why do we have to die? Why do we exist? They questioned everything. Is there a God? Is there an afterlife? They questioned every single thing about the universe. And the Gigantian super intelligence said, yeah, you guys, the Gigantians like, okay, you said this, so they said, yeah, you do this. And the AI said, you all would before. And if you don't become a collective consciousness through the mathematical reality, the simulated reality, you all have to unite as one to transcend the simulation. Okay? To transcend the simulation, which humanity is going to do. Okay? And even if I die before all this stuff happens, I'll come back so I can transcend with the rest of humanity. Okay, I hope I don't die before all this stuff comes around. I don't ever plan on dying once 5 sets of technology comes around. Okay, especially if it does come around, I plan this YouTube channel will be around for basically forever. Okay, as long as YouTube exists. Okay, but the Gigantian planets I already described what the planet looks like. The planet was a gigantic super Earth with rings. Imagine that one planet from the Star Wars universe. That giant planet with rings around it in the Star Wars universe. That's what the gigantic planet looked like. But it was more green. It was more like, it was an Earth-like planet. The Gigantians also achieved many things. They achieved teleportation. Okay, they were even achieving time travel. Yep. They were even making time travel possible. They even made a time machine. They made a lot of things that we consider science fiction. Gigantians achieved it. They were making Dyson spheres. They were making, artificial planets, artificial suns, at the very least. And also, once the Gigantians realized that they could become immortal, they stopped killing each other, stopped the decline, but instead they just moved on to fight other races instead. Hopefully humanity does not do that, and we get rid of crime. We get rid of crime instead, because crime and war are the two. Even if we become immortal, they realize crime and you can still die by being killed. Okay, but the Gigantians, they basically many things that were deemed impossible, the Gigantians achieved. Essentially. Okay, space travel faster than they're achieving faster than light travel. They achieved cryogenics, so they could basically preserve themselves if they died. But again, that didn't really matter once they accepted the virtualization. They were able to genetically edit their genome, so they can all. So like in Dragon Ball Z, where the characters in Dragon Ball Z were able to shoot ki blasts. Gigantians were able to do that. They were able to fly despite not having wings. Okay, because they were more like ostriches and raptors. Okay, they didn't fly, but they made it where they can fly around using spiritual ki energy, because that does exist. Okay, ki is a real thing. We can't access it because we are a very, very primitive race. Okay, they were able to shoot beams out of their hands, like in Dragon Ball Z. I'm not kidding. They were able to do stuff like that. Okay, humanity will soon be able to do that. Fly around using our mind. Okay, using our mind and our spirit. We were able to fly. We were able to do ki blasts. We were able to, we were able to become. They were able to become, what they were going up in the power level scale. Okay, they were able to. Some Gigantians were able to destroy mountains using their powers. Okay, they also genetically modified themselves so they never had to sleep again. They never had to feel pain again, which also helped with their obsession with war. They basically genetically modified themselves to do anything. Okay, anything was basically possible. Okay, if a Gigantian died, they could either be resurrected or, cryopreserved, and they chose so, or they were able to be, brought and to create new bodies as well. More power, and every time the Gigantians died, but if they were connected to the virtual world, they were able to create new and stronger bodies every single time. Okay, they only got stronger with their power, and the Gigantians were even worried. Because that's what Miracrafter kept doing. Miracrafter was able to become a godlike being. He was able to become a godlike being. No joke. He was able to become a godlike being. Tyrantus. Okay, he died. Tyrantus died by his own anger. He got too angry. It was kind of like, Broly. Tyrantus was, he was genetically modified to become perpetually angry. As well, he was another leading scientist that was taken by the American forces and turned into basically a killing machine. But kind of like the many kind of like in fiction, there's these characters that are basically brainwashed to become killing machines. That's what Tyrantus essentially was. He was essentially they were able to brainwash others, turn Gigantians into complete. Basically, evil robotic zombies. Yeah, they were able to brainwash them. They weren't able to make conscious decisions because the Gigantians, elites were brainwashing Gigantians to become soldiers, which again, there. Gigantians were also able to make their own organisms. So if they want to make a zoo full of dinosaur-like beings, they were able to. Okay, they were able to create. There was so many things that they did was unachievable. It's considered science fiction. And yeah, the Gigantians were here. Okay, they every Gigantian knew that their existence had a purpose. Okay, deal. That their existence, their lives, had a purpose. Okay. But again, we are now to the Gigantians world. They were questioning their existence. They were basically, why do we exist? Why do we die? Is there anything after death? It's a universe, a simulation. Okay? Is reality actually reality? Okay? And there. And the Gigantians, they also had animal testing, but it took Gigantians at least 20 years when they started seriously researching life extension technologies. It took them 20 years to research it. We started seriously researching life extension around 2015 to 2016. And it makes perfect sense, like Aubrey D. Gray says 2036. Okay? Exactly what the Gigantians did. It took them 20 years to have life extension technologies. Jeez. If you look at what Einstein said, he said reality is like an illusion. Like all the smart people, or knew all the stuff already. Okay. But again, the simulation, the only true way to exit the simulation is to become immortal. The Gigantians do this, or else they would keep reincarnating. They would keep coming back. But some Gigantians just didn't want to live in the simulation much longer, so they just chose to stop being in the simulation. Okay, and also explain that we haven't met the Gigantians. Okay, we won't really. Right now it's only 2021. Okay, 400 years from before we met the Gigantians. No, not 400, 300 years. Sorry for the bad math now. Okay, but 300 years before we met them. Okay, and now I'm going to go over how I know this. How do I remember this? Okay, I always had, when I was a kid, I always wondered why am I on this planet? Why am I on Earth? Why I'm an alien? Why am I not on this? Why am I not on another planet? And over my life, I started drawing these bird-like creatures. I kept imagining them. Okay, I kept having repeated visions of a planet that had a ring system. Okay, which is deemed implausible by science, but it was a massive planet. Okay, it had a ring on it. It was a ringed planet. It was in the habitable zone, and it was a rocky planet. It was even bigger than most super Earths. This planet was massive. Okay, massive. Okay. I also had visions of the characters. Okay. Most of them were metallic bird-like creatures. Okay. They had scouter-like things, like Saiyans did. Like Frieza and the Saiyans did. Okay. They had, the world was mostly a cyberpunk as a society. Even more cyberpunk. They had flying cars and all that stuff. They had teleportation. It was basically a very, 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 very advanced society. Okay. They were a very, 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 very advanced society. Okay. It takes a very, 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 very advanced. It takes a very advanced society to discover the truths of the universe. It usually takes super intelligent AI to finally reveal the truth of the universe. Okay. The Gigantians also increased the IQ with super intelligent AI. They also they modes of AI to get rid of the memory merits of the brains, which was very similar to our own. Okay, and then the Gigantians realized that all animals, all creatures have to live through this simulation of the simulated universe. Okay, and basically the goal of reincarnation is to basically create our own mathematical simulated universe. As this reality is a purely a mathematical simulated reality. Okay, that our consciousness, mathematically creates or simulates reality. Okay, simulates reality, which also explains how when people have rise between rise progression, which is a thing that exists, that even in the dead, they're able to simulate things with the consciousness. They're able to still simulate things despite being dead, despite not existing in the universe, despite not being alive, despite not being in a fleshly body. They're still able to create simulations. Okay, that our consciousnesses create the simulation. Okay, and when we die, the consciousness, of course, leaves the body, leaves the simulation, and enters outside the simulation, which is the outside of the universe. And if you look up an NDE, it's very, very similar to leaving the simulation. When you die, you leave your body. You go into a spirit world where we can speak with other consciousness and communicate with them telepathically, because you're not in the simulation anymore. So you're outside of the total simulation. Okay, you're outside of the total simulation. Okay, there. Okay, and yeah, soon in the future we won't need to come back to the simulation. That's when some people refer to the Earth project being over. They ain't joking. Okay, you don't need to leave the simulation. Okay, but yeah, the planet Gigantis, there is just a water thing. That's there's also another. There's I think there's four major continents. There's two smaller continents, and there's two massive continents. Okay, there isn't really much else I have to say about that planet. Okay, the culture was very, very, was more a traditional tribalist culture in some areas. Though, there were many, many, many Gigantian races that had very, very wildly different cultures. Some Gigantians had a warlike culture. Some Gigantians were more peaceful. Some Gigantians were, of course, they made different types of food. They had different types of interests. Kind of like humanity. Humanity has all different types of cultures and forms. Okay? There. Okay? They were able to, genetically modify themselves and change themselves. Okay? Gigantians, they transcended life and death. They became godlike beings. Okay? And even then, Gigantians were very, 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 very spiritual. They knew. Gigantians, once they found out the truth about the universe, the total fear of death was eliminated. Okay, the total fear of death was eliminated. Because they found out that the truth of the universe was not what atheists tell you it was. They told you, now. And it will lead many, many Gigantians, but they still wanted to live forever. Because they finally realized, hey, our purpose. They finally realized their purpose. The purpose was to create and to unite as one race. That's what all alien races do as well. Okay? To overcome our planet and become a type 1 civilization. And also become immortal as well. That's the whole goal of it. And yeah, I hope I achieve immortality. I hope that I achieve it, because even if my parents don't make it, immortality comes with its benefits. It won't get boring, unless you're stuck in perpetual war forever. Then that will be boring, because you'll be forced into wars. They don't need to, but if you look at all the stuff that will be coming in the future, virtual reality that is almost indistinguishable from our own. Okay, space travel, new bodies, the virtualization. What is the term virtualization comes from Planet Gigantis. They basically just made it, well, basically completely digitized a creature, okay, and put it in a computer without losing its consciousness at all, without creating a copy at all. That's the true virtualization, okay? That is the true virtualization, okay? They achieved the technological singularity 5 years after they achieved immortality, okay? Which, again, that means Wade Kurzweil was probably right. Wade Kurzweil was probably right about the singularity. See, that is coming. But the Gigantians, they were becoming a machine civilization, essentially. They were becoming a machine. They were already a machine of civilization. Okay, the Gigantians also extended their IQ, their intelligence. That was one thing they did. After life extension, they basically like, you know what? Let's get rid of the whole thing of death. Let's increase our intelligence. Okay, let's accept the virtualization. And again, they said they basically just made death optional. Death was still an option for Gigantians who didn't want to live on planet Gigantis anymore, who wanted to go somewhere else, who wanted to, go into a different world and experience something else. Okay. They wanted to exit the simulation, essentially. And again, there's an infinite amount of simulations out there. Okay. I remember several of these worlds. Okay, I remember several of these. Okay, there's a Minecraft world out there. Yep, Minecraft's a real world. Halo. Okay. Pokemon. Okay. Pokemon is a real thing. There is one of the infinite amount of universes, or simulated universes, that were created by an intelligent life forms. There. And they found out that the truths of the universes, Planet Gigantis, but most Gigantians chose to live. Most of them did. Deaths just started disappearing overall. Only very, very, very few Gigantians died, and it was mostly by suicide. Okay, immortality does not get boring. Some people say it will, but it really did not. For Gigantians, they had virtual reality, where they were able to create whatever they want. Okay, they were able to go to other planets. Even though all they did was conquer them. And again, most Gigantians loved war anyway, so it was basically the favorite thing. Okay, to conquer and take over other places. It was like the favorite thing. It was like the favorite hobby besides virtual reality was going on to other planets and fighting. And they formed a religion based around Minecraft, who was considered a war, a true prophet according to Gigantians. And yeah, Gigantians also had Abrahamic-like religions too. But those religions were eventually proven false, as they found out that the true afterlife was there. The true afterlife was there, where you basically exit the simulation, you go outside the universe, and you pick your character and choose your next simulated character. But the whole point is to transcend the simulation, or we call it transhumanism. To transcend the simulation, to break the natural laws of the universe. And I hope I break the natural laws of the simulation, because it will also have to choose a new simulated character. That's what you have to do. Okay? A new simulated character. And I wouldn't want to do that. I would rather live forever than choose another simulated character again. Okay? There. Because once you exit the simulation and create a new character, you completely forget most of your memories of your previous simulation. Okay? And outside the simulation, there's no time. Because, of course, you're outside the simulation. You're outside of the simulation. Of course, outside the simulation, there's no reality. There's no time. Okay? No space. Okay? There. But we're eventually gonna... The whole point, there. But yeah, Planet Gigantis Hopefully they don't exist. Hopefully we don't have to fight planet gigantis 300 years from now. Okay, if they exist. So if they do exist, we have to be prepared for them. Okay, we have to be prepared for them because we might be the last stand for our galaxy against an aggressive machine civilization that wants to conquer all. So yep, there we go. This video was exactly an hour long too. So yep, that's my explanation of Planet Gigantis. That's basically it about this entire video. Yeah, I can't explain everything because I don't remember every single aspect of the planet because it's only one of many, worlds and simulations that we all lived in. And that's basically it about this video. Goodbye.